I remember when I was around the ages of 14 and 15 years old, and we had a lot of craziness that continued uh, in our life, in our home, you know. Um, but one of the primary issues that was constant in our home was the fact that we never had food. And it was, we never had food because of my mom's addiction. Uh, she got government assistance, she got plenty of money in food stamps and things like that, and she would just go and buy like a $70, $50, $70 meat pack. And for those who don't know what a meat pack is, you go to one of those like stores where they pretty much just sell meat, and they have different menus of packages of different meats that you can buy all at once. And it was like, a package. So you can get like 5 pounds of chicken, 5 pounds of ground beef, 5 pounds of ribs, etc., for X amount of dollars. And she would get like the $50 or the $70 package of meat, which was really, with 4 kids in the house and adults and whatnot, that meat would only last for like a week, especially since that was all that she would buy, just the pack of meat. No sides, no vegetables, no nothing. It was just the meat. So that's all she would buy. We would run out of food really, really fast, and there was nothing left to buy food with because she would sell them to feed her habit. Okay, and as kids, we just had to kind of figure it out daily on our own. So during the school year, of course, we would eat food from school, but outside of that, it was pretty slim pickings. Thankfully, we lived across the street from a church, and they fed the homeless people. And since they fed people, me and my siblings would be in that line so that we can eat as much as we possibly could, during the different times when they would serve food. So, yeah, I had 2 younger brothers, and I had to make sure that they weren't hungry. And just the fact that we had to stand in that line and it's not that we were in that line with our adults, with our mom or anything like that. It was just us. And sometimes some of our friends would come because they kind of lived in the same type of situation that we lived in, and they didn't have food often either. Prior to the church doing the soup kitchen, we had to get a little bit more creative with how we ate on a daily basis. And we didn't have many options because we didn't have access to money like that. We were just kids. So what ended up happening often was we would go to the local gas stations and, stores and whatnot, and we would steal. Primarily little things that we can easily slip into our pockets, like Little Debbie snacks and chips and things like that. That's actually how I picked up eating Nutty Bars. I used to love Nutty Bars, but that's how I was really introduced to eating Nutty Bars so often, which was not good for my diet at all. But I wasn't concerned about my diet at that time. I was concerned about the hunger pains. And so we ended up doing doing things like going and stealing the Little Debbie snacks and stuff from the local stores. And of course, we did it so often that, they caught on. They knew our faces and things like that. So we kind of had to be a lot more mindful about the places that we went to steal something to eat. But we weren't stealing it just because we didn't have nothing else to do and we just loved eating sweets or anything like that. We were stealing it because we genuinely didn't have anything to eat and we didn't have many options. But with that being said, since that was a part of our regular day-to-day life, we had to do something different. So that leads me to my next thing. So during the summer in Minnesota, back then, I don't know if this is still current now, but back then, during the summertime, they had a mayor program that provided summer jobs for kids under the ages of 16. And you can sign up as early as 13. I signed up at 13 and started working a job every single summer, which was really good because then I was able to make money and I could take that money and I could save it because, I was a kid and the thought of a kid working, they should be able to save their money. That wasn't the case for me in my life. I had to do things like buy school supplies and school clothes and whatnot. And I actually helped to provide school supplies and school clothes for, while I was living with my grandmother, I had to help to provide for my younger cousin as well that lived there. And then while I was living with my mom, I worked the summer job, but I couldn't keep my money at home. I had to help to provide for my little brothers school supplies and clothes and, day-to-day stuff, all the way down to like washing the laundry, paying to get the clothes cleaned and whatnot, because those just weren't things that was on the list of priorities for my mom to take care of. So we had to take care of it if we wanted to have our clothes washed. So the end of my 8th grade school year, for those who don't know, I failed the 6th grade, so I was a year behind by now. But the summer that I turned 15, I turned 15 in December. I want to say around that same time of when I turned 15, maybe a month or so after I turned 15, my mom opened our doors of our home to a group of guys who wanted to do some work out of our home. She was familiar with them. Me and my siblings were not familiar with them, of course, but that was when our house became the trap house. For those who don't know what the trap house is, our house was the drug house, okay? They paid my mom in product for them to use our home as a drug home. And even though she had 4 children there, I guess the appeal of having her vices on deck, so to speak, and she doesn't have to do much except for allowing these guys to use our home for their business. I guess that was more appealing to her than the safety of her children. So our house became the trap house, and it was about 5 adult males. I had to give them my bedroom because my bedroom was the closest to the back door, and that's where they would have their customers come to often, because it wasn't on the main street. It was their smarter idea, I guess, to have their business done at the back door instead of the front door. But anyway, Once our house became the trap house, on top of multiple issues that brought, the constant thought of our house being raided, or, just any trouble that could come from 5 drug dealers that weren't selling a little bit of drugs. They were selling a lot of drugs, heavy drugs, and they would cook it up in the kitchen and whatnot. That was the threat of that immediate danger was now really, really relevant. But it wasn't much that we could do because we were the kids. So we kind of just had to accept it. But what happened for me during that time was I found another means of making money. As a result, I began to negotiate with the guys so that I can acquire some product to sell. They would have me do different things, such as, count out all of their product that they have prepared, and then do the math on how much the return would be on all of the product. Or they would have wads of cash, but it was all like balled and unorganized and whatnot. So I would have to organize the money for different, the different guys, depending on which one it was. I would count and organize their money and whatnot, and sometimes they would want me to separate X amount of dollars from this money or whatever. So I would do all that, but while I did it, I would say, you gotta pay me. So I would get a little money here and there for doing those little things. And after doing it for a little while, I had a couple $100s off of them, and I took that money and talked to them about how can I purchase product from them so that I can sell it. Now, yes, our house was a trap house, and yes, these were guys who were there with the purpose of selling drugs out of our home, and in turn, of course, that made an unsafe environment for me and my siblings. But they seen what the situation was, and with our mom and whatnot, and I guess their way of having a heart was they allowed me to purchase product from them, way less than what it was valued at, and then I could sell it. And that's what I started doing. I was in 8th grade, and I was selling crack cocaine in 8th grade. I would go to school. I remember when I initially started selling it, and I had, a little hiding place in my room where I would hide my product, as well as the money that I made, so I'm not just going to school with such things on me or whatnot. But I would hide it, and then when I would come home, everything is gone through and my product is gone, as well as my money, So I already knew what the issue was. It was my mom. So I couldn't leave the house and leave my product and money at the house. So I became that 8th grade student. I was an honor roll student. I was the principal's list student. I was a shining star at school. That's my normal personality. That's who I was, and I was not a disruptive child. I was not disrespectful. I was tough. I was very tough, but I wasn't tough by choice. I was tough by circumstance, and I wasn't the one to mess with too much, because, as I said, I was tough. I was very tough, but I wasn't a bad kid, and I never when I started selling drugs, when that became a reality for me, there was never anything in me prior to that said this is something that I would have to do. And I didn't sell drugs. People who know me till this day know that I'm not flashy. I'm not into like name brands and gym shoes, all that type of stuff. I'm the frugal shopper, and it was the same thing back then. Yes, I was a kid, but I had been through so much life in that area. When it came to spending money, I kind of tried to hold on to it because you don't know where or when the next money is gonna come from. You don't know. So I kind of tried to hold on to it, other than buying the things that were needed, like food or school stuff, or taking care of the laundry or things like that. Other than that, I kind of tried to hold on to whatever funds that I had. So I didn't sell drugs because I wanted to be like the drug dealers or anything like that. It wasn't because I wanted to drive fancy cars or wear all the nicest clothes or anything like that. It was literally because I needed a means of providing for myself and for my siblings as best as I could as a 15-year-old kid at that time. That lasted for as long as our house was a trap house. Once our house was no longer the trap house, I didn't go and like try to find another big time drug dealer who I can buy drugs from or anything. And by the way, the only reason that our house was no longer the trap house is because we got evicted. We got evicted because the neighbors reported too much traffic going to our house all day, every day, which it was. But point being is, it's not that life changed in that moment or the danger of living in a trap house changed in that moment because my mom or the adults around me came to their senses and said, this is bad for the kids, this is bad for their growth and development or whatever, this is dangerous. It's not that anybody came to their senses, it's just that we got evicted and we could no longer live there. If that hadn't happened, ain't no telling how long that situation would have been relevant in my life. But that was that. Not every drug dealer or kid that's out there doing those things is doing it because they're attracted to the glitz or the glamour thought of it. They are doing it because of necessity, and that's the only option that's in front of them. So keep that in mind.